Hello everyone, I'm MVL and welcome to another episode of Video Game Pickups. First up we have an N64 Everdrive. An Everdrive is a flash memory cartridge that allows you to play game ROM files. Essentially this allows me to play my whole collection of N64 games on one cartridge without swapping. Unlike emulation, it runs exactly as it should because it delivers the data exactly how the console expects on real hardware. In this case, it also happens to bypass region locking, allowing me to play American and Japanese games on my PAL console. I also have a Turbo Everdrive. Which I use on my core graphics, and it allows me to play both my PC Engine and TurboGrafx games on my system, bypassing the region locking. These things are really useful, though I would advise if you're looking into getting an Everdrive, check out what you want because there's different versions. There are many fake Everdrives out there, so be wary because cheap knockoffs can damage your system. So make sure to get an official Crits Everdrive and support the creator. Alright, now on to the games, and first up we have Probotector II on the Game Boy. This is a run and gun game, which is known in America as Contra the Alien Wars and known in Japan as Contra Spirits. This is actually the Game Boy version of Contra 3 The Alien Wars with some changes. Notably, the Probotector Power Region series changes the Contra human characters to robots. This game plays really well, as you are seeing captured on my Game Boy player on the GameCube. As you play, you can pick up power-ups and ride vehicles to increase your damage output as you clear the screen of enemies as you proceed through the game. There's also a bit of platforming and area hazards for you to jump around, and boss battles to contend with as well. This game is a classic and a great game to have on the go. That's Probotector II on the Game Boy. Next up we have Solar Striker on the Game Boy. This is a shoot 'em up game, which features vertically scrolling shooting action, where you can grab power-ups to increase your firepower, and you can also battle massive bosses and take them down. I really enjoy that this game lets you hold down the fire button to attack instead of constantly tapping the button to maintain a rate of fire. Shoot 'em up fans will know what I'm talking about, that some games make you fire slower if you hold down the fire button or don't let you do that at all, so the player is instead forced to repeatedly press the fire button. Now I don't think that it's controversial to say that I don't believe that is a skill issue, and I'm glad that this game doesn't make me want to find a turbo controller to save my hand. Anyway, for a shoot 'em up game on the Game Boy hardware, this game is fun. That's Solar Striker on the Game Boy. Next up we have Generations Lost on the Mega Drive. This is a platformer that plays a bit like the game Flashback. Platforming and unlocking the way forward is mostly the obstacle in this game, but there's also enemies that can be eliminated to proceed as well. Your character Manob is seeking to uncover the past of his people using magic technology. Manob wields an arm-mounted gauntlet called the E-Rad. This can fire energy bolts and make an energy rope to traverse and swing on. It can also be temporarily powered up to be more useful for a time. Different stages can be unlocked and travel between, which is also pretty cool. I got a great deal on this game, complete in box at £18, although it was very dirty when I got it. When I was cleaning and testing the game, I thought it was broken because it wouldn't work on my Mega Drive Model 1, and I thought I'd have to capture footage from a ROM on my Retro Freak. But then I remembered another Mega Drive game I have, Double Dragon, works on one of my Mega Drive consoles and not the other, in that instance on my Model 1 console and not my Model 2. So I put Generations Lost in my Model 2 instead of my Model 1, and bizarrely it worked fine. And that's the footage you're seeing right now. So there's a bit of a tip if you're having trouble getting some oddball Mega Drive games to work. A small number of games seem to only work on only the Model 1 or the Model 2 and not both, but I think it's a very uncommon occurrence. Anyway, I thought I should mention that. I'm glad that this game actually works because I really like it. If this is the kind of game that you like as well, then I'd say that this is a hidden gem. That's Generations Lost on the Mega Drive. Next up we have Hybrid Heaven on the N64. This is an action role-playing game. That is an N64 exclusive and unironically plays as a hybrid of genres with action platforming with RPG elements. The story follows your character initially under the guise of Diaz, infiltrating an underground network of human hybrids created by an alien force with the aim to clone various people of power and replace them to take over the world. your character aims to tackle this plan from within. You can move around freely with movement akin to a Tomb Raider game. Whilst exploring, you may also encounter various robotic enemies which you can shoot. They respawn, but you also have unlimited ammo for your basic weapon. Tougher enemies and bioweapons have a more involved encounter, where you can move around and then pause the action when prompted to attack or defend. This combat system is actually really fun and deep, with different moves you can learn for each body part, as well as wrestling-style grapple attacks. Different moves also have different ranges and speeds as well, which is something to keep in mind when striking so you can hit first and avoid counter-attacks. You level up each body part individually, but you can't rely solely on one thing, since body parts get hurt in combat and may become temporarily unusable. You can also find expendable weapons and healing items around as well. I think that this game is really cool and it's definitely worth checking out. That's Hybrid Heaven on the Nintendo 64. Next up we have Grandia on the PlayStation. This is a role-playing game that has great colourful 3D visuals and wonderful 2D sprite characters. As with many RPGs, it takes a while to get fully into the game. Here the game opens inside of a town and you have to do some fetch quests, interacting with characters and finding items before you can venture outside where you would encounter monsters and find treasure. But I think it's good for longer games like RPGs to introduce characters and build up gameplay gradually. Something that I noticed early on in this game is that you might need to talk to some characters more than once or come back to them again to move on with the story. And that was something important to do, or you can get stuck. You can also purchase or find items inside of the towns, and items can be used to do things like heal your party out of combat. Later, as your characters venture beyond, you can battle enemies which actually appear visible on the screen before combat, and you can fight them if you run into them. From there, combat is turn-based with your characters moving and attacking automatically based on your commands. You can level up from your experience in battles and procure more loot as well to aid you on your journey. This is a deep RPG with some fun characters and dialogue throughout. If this is your kind of thing and you've got the time for it, it's a good time to be had for sure. That's Grandia on the PlayStation. Next up we have Gladius on the PlayStation 2. This is a tactical role-playing game with great cinematic presentation and deep tactical combat as well. When you begin the game you can select two characters, Valens for a harder story or Ursula for an easier time, and I chose Ursula. The game has a great tutorial which is pretty long, but it's needed since the combat is quite involved. The combat is overhead and turn-based, characters can attack and use magic as well. Advantage can be gained from attacking from elevated positions, like on top of an object. You can also do more damage from striking from the side or behind the facing of your opponent. Also, the type of gladiator matters when attacking, in a similar vein to other tactical RPGs like Fire Emblem. There are light, medium and heavy gladiators, and each has advantages or disadvantages over the other types. Each type of gladiator also has different skills and may have different aspects like movement speed and things like that. You can purchase and equip new weapons, armor and other items, and you can also recruit new gladiators to join your force for battles as well. Something that I really like is that there's a hit meter which pops up whenever you attack, and this is pretty fun because if you time it right you can deal massive damage. I think that having that interaction during the turn-based combat makes me feel more involved when playing, so I really like it. This game is pretty cool, and although the tutorial takes a while to get going, it is skippable if you already know what you're doing. I really enjoyed giving this a go, and I'd certainly like to get back to it since there's so much to do. That's Gladius on the PlayStation 2. Next up we have Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball on the original Xbox. This is a volleyball game, set after the events of Dead or Alive 3, where one of the characters, Zack, has procured his own private island and invites all the girls from Dead or Alive to hang out. In this game, you can play exhibition matches or engage in the game's simulation-style story mode, where the game focuses on your character establishing relationships with the other characters, playing various minigames and saving up winnings to buy new items and costumes. As you can see, I bought a ball with a flag on it. Volleyball is a team game, however, and be warned that you have to keep your partner happy or she'll leave you, and then you'll have to find someone else to play with. So you'll need to win games and give gifts to your partner to keep your team happy. I do have an issue about the volleyball gameplay however, as I find that the dynamic camera angles during play can make it hard to see your character, and because of that you can miss returning the ball because you can't see where you are. I'd prefer a static overhead camera angle instead. But regardless, this game is fun. This game was actually inspired by the volleyball minigame in Tekken 3, and after fans of this series suggested that that would be a good fit for Dead or Alive. That's Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball on the original Xbox. Next up we have Far Cry Instincts on the original Xbox. This is a first-person shooter, and it's a remake of the PC game Far Cry. Instincts not only changes aspects of the gameplay, but also alters the story. The game itself is more linear, with less free roaming because of the limitations of the original Xbox compared to personal computers at the time. You can also do things like set traps, which you couldn't do in the original Far Cry. The most notable change, however, is that although the story begins the same way as the original Far Cry, the character in Instincts gains new bestial abilities, giving them superhuman-like powers. If two different versions of the same game sound somewhat confusing, it actually gets more confusing, as although the original Far Cry got its own sequel with Far Cry 2 which came to the Xbox 360, Far Cry Instincts also got its own sequel with Far Cry Instincts Evolution on the original Xbox, which is a different game to Far Cry 2. And this splintered progression continued with Far Cry Instincts Predator, which is an Xbox 360 compilation of Far Cry Instincts and Far Cry Instincts Evolution. There was also an arcade VR version of Far Cry Instincts called Paradise Lost as well, but there's no home console version of that, and I only mentioned it to make this seem more confusing. Does anything I said there make sense? Anyway, what's lost in confusion here is that this is a great game, or should I say, a great version of a great game despite its changes and limitations. This game is certainly worth checking out. In fact, I'd say the more straightforward progression of this version makes this very easy to follow and play. That's Far Cry Instincts on the original Xbox. Next up we have The House of the Dead 3 on the original Xbox. This is a light gun game, and because it's a light gun game, you'll need a CRT TV and a light gun. I used a Sony Trinitron CRT TV and a 4Gamers Xbox light gun, and that worked fine. However, if you want a similar experience without a big-backed tube television and peripheral, this game was ported to the Wii in The House of the Dead 2 and 3 Return, and you can play that fine with a flat-screen TV using a Wiimote and sensor bar on a Wii or Wii U console. And I actually do recommend that version as well, it's really good. Anyway, this is arcade action at its finest. I've actually already played through this game on the Wii version, which I already had, so I knew what to expect retroactively from this version, and it's great. The game has multiple paths to choose from during play, so you can mix up the action between playthroughs. The screen gets flooded with enemies, so it's always a blast to battle through that, and there's massive boss battles to learn and figure out as well. You can also save people or your partner from monster attacks in some areas, which if done right will reward you with some health. There's also power-ups that can be found throughout stages as well to help. The original Xbox didn't have many light gun games, which is a shame because I think the platform does it pretty well. Regardless, it's one of my favourite genres of arcade action game, so I couldn't resist picking this up. That's The House of the Dead 3 on the original Xbox. And finally we have Disaster: Day of Crisis on the Wii. This is an action-adventure game, which also features light gun style shooting. In this game you control Raymond Bryce, in a cinematic adventure akin to a Hollywood action blockbuster. There's a lot of cinematic sequences that tell the story of this game, and the gameplay is very varied, ranging from platforming sections where you need to traverse hazards and save people from danger, to quick time sections where you need to perform timed actions to escape danger or rescue someone before it's too late. And there's also light gun shooting sections that play like Time Crisis using the Wiimote, where you can duck to avoid enemy fire and reload and hit back quickly to clear the screen of enemies to move on. I found this game really interesting with its big movie style story and varied gameplay elements. Even though I was constantly learning new controls for new sections of play, I still thought that the gameplay was engaging because of the variety involved. although I have to say abstractly that the light gun style parts were my favourite. It's a shame that this game isn't more well known, as I understand it wasn't released in America and that might have hindered its popularity. Though I am glad that it did come out where I could get it. I think that more people should have had the chance to play this game because it's quite a unique experience with its blend of playstyles. This game won't be for everyone, but I certainly liked it, and I think it deserves more attention. What do you think? That's Disaster Day of Crisis on the Wii. And there you have it, those were my pickups for this episode of Video Game Pickups. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment to let me know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. And if you'd like to, you can also support me through Patreon or YouTube channel membership. Thank you for watching, I've been MVL, and I will catch you next time.